So today, I'm Tom.
I'm Emma.
And we're going to talk to you about residential life. And this is one of the older functional areas of student affairs. And it sounds like kind of just surveying the room, it sounds like many of you have some experience with this, either as an undergraduate student or as a professional staff member. So we will be as informative as possible. But basically, it started off kind of where students would go and they would be studying. Essentially, they would need also a place to live, and it had kind of we read about how it was the Dean of Men's and the Dean of Women's, and originally it was a lot of just keeping them in order and disciplinary stuff and making sure that there were correct consequences and you were kind of on the right path. But it always did have that underlying sort of goal of developing the whole person. They didn't just want to discipline, and you heard from Jeremiah the other day about the judiciary and kind of the goal of that. So that's always been the underlying thing. But over the years, it's developed into this like fully functioning, everyone's kind of realizing the numerous benefits beyond just kind of becoming more independent in your own.
So basically, if you have stuff going on at home, it's hard for you to focus on things going on at school. People in elementary school, middle school, high school feel that same thing is happening with students at college or university. If you have something that's going on with your roommate, or you're not pleased with your living situation, or something's going on, it's really nice to be able to have somebody to go talk to, whether that is a student as in a residential assistant, or at my school I call it community leader position, or if it's a more serious issue, going higher up to a hall or area director that's in charge of the whole building. It's a unique area because there can be people that are both students, current students, sophomores through seniors, living and working in the hall and going to school, as well as professionals that are working in higher up roles who have usually already obtained their bachelor's, preferred masters, as you'll see in some of the positions that we put in our handout. Some of the issues that we talked about in our handout, one of them is, I read a really interesting article called Dorm Therapy. It was in the Chronicle of Higher Education. And don't be turned off by the word dorm, but basically talking about what...
So it was the title.
Yes, it's the title, not my fault. Basically, how much is too much to include in a residential hall? It's basically saying if you have, really great Wi-Fi service everywhere, and there's a place to work out in the residential hall, and you also have a dining hall there where you can get food and vending machines, and some places even have they're saying like, don't put a jacuzzi in every single dorm room or everything. If you have every amenity needed, people will never leave the residential hall. They don't get to participate in campus activities. And the best way to get to know people, it's great getting to know people in your hall, but it's also really good getting to know people that you don't live directly with or that you maybe wouldn't experience before. But at the same time, if you just have it as a dorm where you go and you sleep there and you don't do anything else there, it's really hard to get that community with the people that live right next to you. It'll be like, at my apartment right now, I know the people that live next to me have dogs, and that's all I know about them. And so you really want to try to bring people out and get to know the people that are living around you, because college university students, you're in school together, you all have to do homework. Might as well knock on their door and say, hey, can you study together? We have this living space in our residential hall, and we can all go study there. So it's finding the balance of what to include, what not to include, so that you still get people out and active, but they're not just pulled up in their room, never leaving.
Then other kind of current issues are learning how to accommodate students who identify as being transgender or who have a lot of mental health issues, and that came up in a lot of our interviews. And we interviewed kind of two different sides, and I learned this about residential life is you have kind of what Brian Helmanack, who's the Associate Director of Residence Life at St. Thomas, you have the operations side of residence life of, how many couches do we need, the sink's broken, filling the rooms with people and working with admissions and knowing how many people do we have overflow area, what happens if these students drop out and we get more. So you have the operations side, and then you have the people side, where those are the supervisors who will work with the residence advisors and the students and a lot of event planning. And so I interviewed Brian as well as a community advisor at the U of M Twin Cities.
And for my interviews, I interviewed an RA from Bethany Lutheran College, as well as my friend Mary Palin, who was a resident assistant for 2 years, and then for her senior year, she's an assistant director, which is an interesting position because it's this one step under being a hall director, but one step above being an RA. And so one thing that was hard for her that it was fun that we got to hear Jade just talk about, something you need to set is boundaries. And it was really difficult for her to move from her sophomore and junior year, being an RA with all of her friends, getting that community feeling. And then when she moved up to the assistant director, she sort of had to be above those people that she was friends with. And we have a few quotes later on in our handout, but she was like, I just want to be friends with everyone. And so it was really hard for me to be, okay, but no, I actually have to tell you some of the rules that we have to follow and things like that. So she is really leaning towards the community building side rather than the professional side. And so it's difficult for her to find that balance, but she's doing really well with it. And then the third I interviewed is Lisa Murphy, who actually works at my undergrad at Baylor. And she was a hall director for 4 years, and now she's an assistant director for the residential life there, residential learning. And so it was fun to see her perspective for moving from a hall director position, getting to live in community with the students, work with RAs directly and students directly. And now she said she sort of gets to be the mentor for hall directors. And she's really enjoyed moving from one position to the other. And one thing that she did mention, which is sort of a current issue, but more just depending on if you want to go into this field. She said right now there's 40 hall directors at Baylor. There's only 3 of her position, assistant director. So it's like a pyramid with a very wide base. The further up you would like to go in this area, it's a lot harder to find those positions that are open, to find the timing of you having enough experience and being ready to move up. So she said it was a lot of just timing things that worked out really well for her. So something to keep in mind if you'd like to go into this area is it may not always be easy to move up to a new position, but according to her, it's definitely worth it. She spent overall 6 or 7 years as a hall director at different institutions, loved that time, was ready to move up. People told her about the position, she seemed excited for it, applied for it, got it. So just be aware that once the higher up you move, assistant directors, associate directors, and then director, they'll kind of go in this area.
Yeah,
Yes.
Brian Helmreich talked about a lot of people obviously can't, not everyone can kind of go up to the top, so other people will either move over to different institutions or different functional areas, or they'll even do something new entirely. And a lot of people will go even into the corporate world because working in residential life, you learn a lot of leadership building and team building and essentially learning how to rally a bunch of people to get a task done. And so I have a bunch of, I suppose, people in my office who worked in residence life, they worked in financial aid, and then they'd go off and work for Best Buy or Target Corporation, and then they would work on their leadership teams and their orientation and their trainings, just because they have so many skills from before. So that's kind of another place where people might go.
Another thing that came up in both of our interviews was mental health issues. A lot of people, I know that I did this when I was a student. If I had a problem with my roommate because we were not fans of each other, I would go and cry to my CL about it because I didn't know how to deal with it. But if people have a serious underlying mental issue, we also talked about that a little bit yesterday with disability services. You need to be able to find professionals that are trained in that area to help them, because a lot of RAs or hall directors, area directors will not have the exact same professional training. Like in our program, I think you can choose electives for counseling if you would like to, but that's not what our main focus is. So being able to direct them to someone who can help them professionally and is appropriate to help them with issues is also something that has been coming about and is just kind of prevalent in this area as well.
So the rest of it is going to be a little bit of kind of like a quiz / game. So
if we could split the room in half a little bit, there will be 2 teams. So just sort of pick a side, any side.
I think the buzzed over here.
The number, the exact number you guys
Oh, I love Tell me why. Go with you. Go going down. It's coming. It's so
okay, so moving like quicker.
This side of the room is going to be team leadership. Something that you have to learn in residential life is how to be a leader, whether it's a student, of hall directors, area directors. This side will be team community. Community building is really big in residential life. I'm going to keep our score up here.
And then I don't know if we'll have a ton of time for like a super like team huddle collaboration, but if someone raises their hand and I that is your team's decision. So maybe if you do want to hash it over, be careful with your hand.
We don't need
size.
Good answer, good answer.
But use her
Okay, we got it.
as much as she wants to.
Yeah, that's true. They have that.
Is everyone ready for the first question?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna start with student leadership.
Common jobs in residential life. We've talked about a few examples. You can see some that are in your pamphlet as well.
We're starting with team leadership.
That's how Family Feud works, guys. We have to wait.
Show me.
Good answer, good answer.
Director.
I'm so excited.
Let's keep going. Yes.
The director of residence life.
Director. Right.
Director of
An RA or other acronyms.
It's what people think most.
Yes.
RA was
Correct.
first.
Correct.
Yeah, I think, guys.
All right. Let's get one more. Yes.
Assistant director or associate.
Assistant director.
Assistant director is on there.
nervous.
And there's one
Can you think of
more.
what number 4 might be?
Yes.
Area director.
Area director.
Area director is
Nice.
We were based off of our interview responses.
Yes.
And so not a lot of people mentioned area director. Out of
And you know
the
what,
five
simply it's the
people.
hall director. Area directors are considered hall director, so that was my bad.
No judgments here.
Hey, no
I
huddling.
knew that.
You don't get to do that until, you don't get to do that until 2 strikes.
Okay. Let's what else? Yes. Administrative assistant. Good one.
Administrative assistant is a good position, but it is not the 4th one on
Right,
here.
right, right.
Okay, so now you can start to huddle. All right. Yes.
How about on the person who works at the front? I don't know.
That's the original desk. Not on there. Okay, so you have one chance to steal. Our team leadership gets the point.
What was their third guess? No, they surveyed.
Their
and
third
so, like,
guess
what
was the
people-
front desk, like
No, it's not what
administrative
was actually
assistant.
there. It's what people.
I think I got it.
Three strikes.
They gave it away.
Yes.
We're gonna say associate.
Good answer, good answer, good
Okay, we want to keep this moving, so I know we're quick on time. So, we're going to start with community important skills to have in residence life based on who we interviewed. Yes.
Leadership.
Leadership.
Good answer, good answer. Good answer. Uh-oh, wait.
Leadership is not on
Leadership. What X?
Organization?
Organization. There's 8 of them.
No.
No. Yes. People skills. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd say 5. I'm gonna give you the listening skills. I think that counts as people
Part of
skills.
people skills. So you have 2 strikes.
2 strikes.
so-
Yeah, no shame.
Can I?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Adaptability.
Good answer, good answer.
All right. What else?
Still have 2 strikes.
Communication.
Communication.
Number 1. Yes.
Ooh, good answer. Oh, nah, I know that so now.
Just accept it.
It's on there.
No.
It's
Good
not.
answer, good answer, good job.
Okay, so 2 third strikes. All you have to do is just get 1.
I really feel like you're on
the
the show. People are always like, yeah, yeah.
Clearly you didn't learn any of this.
Yes.
Team building.
Team
We will
building.
accept it.
Alright, let's see what the other answers were. Number 3. Live in sense of humor and life.
I told you what about the
Okay.
We have time for our last question.
Oh, go, please.
You have 17 seconds until you have 5 minutes for questions, so I think
Okay.
Super quick.
Tiebreaker.
Tiebreakers. We have to do it. Okay.
More points though.
Common dislikes. It's just best to have 3. Common dislikes in residential life. Yes,
The
Courtney.
bathroom.
bathrooms?
Bathroom
Or facilities in general.
is not on here.
So is it, can we sit still now? Is it just like
One S.
professional?
Yes, this like stuff professionals. This is from all of these are from our interviews.
Yep,
So
so
these are what our
combination of
interviews
RNs
say.
and directors.
Setting boundaries with your, you talk.
Are we talking from the professional standpoint?
Yeah, these are all
Correct,
from our
all from the
interviews.
press.
Oh,
Boundaries.
Well, work-life, the lack of a work-life balance.
Work-life balance.
That totally should be on there.
Probably. I think we're gonna give you privacy.
Privacy.
Yeah, balance and privacy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Balancing that.
Did you want to do boundaries?
Yeah, setting boundaries with your friends. Talked about.
Boundaries is not on here.
Two.
That was not one of the largest dislikes from our interviews.
Ooh, hear that.
You have two more choices, chances.
Not being able to.
Oh,
Oh, advancement.
the lack of money, compensation, I should say.
Ooh, compensation. Is that one of the?
We don't make a lot of money, it's a rewarding job, that's why you get, that's why you get in there.
It's not on there.
Not listed here.
So that's three. So you've seen one common
Me!
dislike. Yes.
Parents! And if it's not on there, I quit.
Parents is not on
No! Have you worked in res life?
Paperwork, judicial, politics.
Jaquez loves the one.
Oh, never mind. Oh, it is parents.
He loves you all.
We let them win, guys.
And then community can also have a piece of candy.
I wish parents on all of
Also,
the people
pass
that
this
you
around if you guys would like to ask questions while we're passing out the pens and candy.
You get pins too?
Only for the winners.
They get
Hot off the
pens.
presses. And then where did the teams split?
We were
Yeah, Jack,
okay.
you didn't want to be on
I'll have extras at the end
Let's stay
if you want
focused
to.
if we can. We have 3 minutes to ask our presenters
Yes,
questions.
I will keep passing this out as you ask your questions.
Yes.
How, did anybody mention kind of how long on average they last in this role? The interview with me, myself, and your notes here is, you know, it's a stepping stone. It'll make you better fitted for other jobs.
Yes, one of the most popular sort of responses I heard is that a lot of unmarried professionals, and so kind of oftentimes when those residence life workers will start growing a family, sometimes they'll